Welcome back, Homo sapiens. The group stage is finally over. 32 teams enter. Now only 16 will survive. Today's matchup might look straightforward if you only look at the badges. Five-time world champion Brazil against an Asian nation that's never won the World Cup. Most people immediately think Brazil should win comfortably, but football isn't played on history. It's played over 90 minutes. And if you've watched both teams throughout this tournament, this might actually become one of the toughest matches Brazil has played so far. Why? Because Brazil have world-class players, while Japan may just be the best team left in this tournament. That's a huge difference. Today we're going to break down exactly why this game is much closer than people think. We'll look at recent forms, predicted lineups, tactical systems, strengths and weaknesses, key battles, how each team can realistically win, and finally our full match simulation, including what happens if this game goes into extra time or penalties. So let's begin. But before we start, I would like to say in advance that if I pronounce these names or words wrong, I would like to say sorry first because I'm not really good at pronouncing, I guess you could say. But not much talking, let's get right into the details. Before talking about tactics, there's something many fans may have forgotten. These two teams actually met in a friendly last year, and surprisingly Japan won. Not only did they win, they came from behind. Brazil took an early lead. Most of their regular starters played. Everything looked under control, but then Japan slowly began taking control of the match. Their pressing became more aggressive. Brazil started giving the ball away. Their midfield became stretched. The spaces between the defenders got bigger. Japan scored once, then again, and eventually they completed an incredible comeback to win 3-2. It was Japan's first ever victory over Brazil. Now, should we use this one friendly match to predict a World Cup knockout match? No. Friendlies are completely different. Players rotate. Intensity isn't the same. Managers experiment. But that match proves something very important. Japan no longer fears Brazil. They've already shown themselves we can beat these guys. That psychology advantage matters, especially in a knockout football match. So let's start with Brazil. Alright, for Brazil, under our Carlo Ancelotti, Brazil have become a very different team. If you grew up watching Ronaldinho, Kaká, Ronaldo, or even Neymar at his peak, this Brazil probably feels different. They're not constantly attacking, they're not trying tricks every minute. Instead, they've become much more controlled, more patient, more balanced. Ancelotti's philosophy is simple. Protect the defense first, attack with quality, not quantity. Instead of sending everyone forward, Brazil usually attacks with 4 or 5 players while the rest stay behind with the ball. This makes them much harder to counterattack. But it also creates another problem. Sometimes their attacks becomes predictable. Instead of breaking teams down through combinations, they often wait for one player to produce something special. Usually that player is Vinícius Júnior. But back then people liked it more because it was more magical. You could feel it. It's different from now. But Brazil's expected lineup. Now we're going to the lineup part. Their goalkeeper might be it definitely would be Alisson. And their defense, we have players like Danilo, Marquinhos, Gabriel, Douglas Santos, and the midfield, Casemiro, Bruno Guimarães, Lucas Paquetá, and their attack, Ryan, Matheus Cunha, Vinícius Júnior. Neymar is expected to be available, but personally, I don't think he'll be Brazil's biggest weapon. He's a bit rusty now. I can't expect someone to shine all the time. It's not possible. But why I don't think Neymar will be the decider of this match. Now, before the comments explode, let me explain. This isn't disrespect towards Neymar. Prime Neymar is one of the greatest footballers I ever watched. But football changes, players change, injuries change careers. If you watch Neymar recently at Santos, you'll notice something. His football IQ is still unbelievable, his first touch is still incredible, his passing is still elite, but can still slow the game down. He can still create chances, but physically, he isn't the same player anymore. He's not beating 3 defenders every match. He's not sprinting repeatedly for 90 minutes. He's not carrying Brazil by himself anymore. Could he come off the bench and create a magical assist? Absolutely, I think that would be possible. But if Brazil wins this match, I don't think it will be because of Neymar. Turn back the clock. It'll be because of players like Vinícius Júnior, Bruno Guimarães, Lucas Paquetá, or even Matheus Cunha made the difference. Well, this is easy. Individual quality, Brazil might not have the best teamwork left in this tournament, but they probably have the best talent collection of individual talent. Imagine you're Japan. You've defended perfectly for 70 minutes. One mistake, one misplaced pass, suddenly Vinícius is running directly at your defense. That's terrifying. Because defenders know even if they do everything right, Vinícius can still beat them. That's what separates elite players. Brazil don't always need beautiful football. Sometimes they only need one moment. This is where things becomes interesting. Brazil's are full of stars. Japan aren't yet. I actually think Japan plays better together. Brazil still rely on individual brilliance more than collective movement. Watch Brazil carefully. Sometimes Vinícius starts an attack, Paquetá waits, Bruno moves. Cunha drifts wide open. These movements aren't always synchronized. Compare that with Spain, Germany, or Japan. Those teams almost look choreographed. Every player already knows what the next movement is. Brazil don't always have that level of chemistry. Against weaker opponents, that usually don't matter. Against Japan, it could become a problem. Now let's talk about Japan though. Okay, for Japan, if Brazil represents individual brilliance, Japan represents teamwork. Honestly, Japan might be the best coach team remaining in this tournament. They don't have the biggest stars, they don't have to spend 200 million euros on attackers, yet every tournament they continue shocking bigger nations. Why? Because Japan doesn't rely on talent alone. They rely on the system. They're like a machine basically. So for Japan's expected lineup, you could expect their goalkeeper to be Zion Suzuki, their defense might be Ko Itakura, Ayumu Seko, Hiroki Ito, and for the wingbacks, we have Ritsu Doan, Keito Nakamura, and for the midfield, we have Ao Tanaka, Hidemasa Morita, and for the attacking midfield, we have Daichi Kamada, Junya Ito, and lastly, for the striker, there will be Ayesa Ueda. Personally, I think Moriyatsu returning to something very close to the matchday one lineup. That lineup looked the most balanced. It gave Japan pace, energy, pressing, and the chemistry looked better than some of the rotation lineups later in the group stage. People say actually Japan don't have stars. I actually disagree. Japan don't have global superstars. That's different. Look at the squad. There's Daichi Kamada, creative, calm under pressure, excellent between the lines. Junya Ito, one of the quickest transition players in Asia. And Ritsu Doan works endlessly, tracks back, can score, can create. And we have Keito Nakamura, excellent movement without the ball. Ayase Ueda, always stretching the defenders. Ao Tanaka, one of the smartest midfielders in this team. And Morita, the player who quietly keeps everything balanced. None of these players are trying to become the hero. They're trying to help the system. That's why Japan continues succeeding. If you look at Japan's history, their recent matches history, they have never lost before. They have not before like all time, but like recently, they have never lost recently. Japan plays like a machine, and this is probably the best way to describe them. Watch Japan without the ball. The striker presses immediately. The winger closes the passing lane. The midfielder pushes forward. The wingback tucks inside. Nobody hesitates. Nobody points a finger. Everybody already knows their next movement. It's almost robotic. That's why I call Japan a machine. And here's the scary part. If one player gets injured, another players come in. And the machine keeps working. Very few national teams can rotate players without losing their identity. Japan can. That's one of the biggest reasons why they've become such a difficult opponent in international football. But now for the main tactical battle, this game isn't Brazil's attack versus Japan's defense. It's actually Brazil's individual brilliance versus Japan's collective organization. Brazil will probably dominate possession, somewhere around 60%. Japan won't care. In fact, that's exactly what they want. Japan don't need the ball. They need the right movements. Every time Brazil loses possession, Japan immediately attacks the pace behind Brazil's fullbacks. That's where Junya Ito and Keito Nakamura becomes incredibly dangerous. Brazil's biggest challenge won't be creating chances. It'll be staying patient. Because Japans are experts at frustrating opponents. And frustrated teams makes mistakes. Now that we've looked at both teams, let's talk about the individual battles that could decide this match. Because in knockout football, sometimes one matchup changes everything. Vinícius Júnior versus Ritsu Doan. This is probably the most important battle of the match. Everybody knows that Vinícius wants to receive the ball wide, face his defender, accelerate, and either cut inside or drive to the byline. If he wins enough on one-on-one duels, Brazil becomes incredibly dangerous. But Japan won't defend him with just one player. This is where Moriyasu's system becomes so effective. When Vinícius receives the ball, Doan presses immediately. Then Morita slides across. Itakaru steps up. Suddenly, Vinícius isn't facing one defender anymore. He's surrounded by three. That's how Japan defends. Not individually, but collectively. Brazil knows Vinícius is their biggest weapon. Japan knows that too. So don't expect Vinícius to get much space. Now, Casemiro and Bruno Guimarães versus Kamada and Tanaka. This battle might decide who controls the tempo. Brazil's midfield is stronger physically. Casemiro protects the defense, Bruno Guimarães controls possession, Paquetá looks for creative passes. But Japan's midfield is completely different. They're constantly moving, nobody stays in one position. If Kamada drifts wide, Tanaka fills the middle. If Morita drops deeper, another midfielder pushes forward. It's continuous rotation. That movement could create confusion for Brazil's midfield. And then we have Matheus Cunha versus Japan's back three. Cunha's job isn't only scoring. He constantly drops deeper. pulls defenders out of position, creates space for Vinicius. Japan's center backs must decide, do they follow him or hold their defensive line? If they follow, Vinicius attacks the empty space. If they don't, Kuna has time to turn. That's another fascinating tactical battle. So, how can Brazil win? If I were at Carlo Ancelotti, this would be my game plan. Number 1, don't panic. Japan wants Brazil to become impatient. The longer Brazil becomes frustrated, the stronger Japan becomes. Second, attack quite quickly after winning possession. Japan are extremely organized when their defense is set. It's the best time to attack them is before they recover their shape. Third, keep Vinicius isolated one-on-one. If Vinicius constantly receives the ball with space, Brazil's chances increase dramatically. Finally, avoid unnecessary mistakes in midfield. Because Japan don't need 20 opportunities. One mistake could be enough. But now, how can Japan win? If I were Hajime Moriyasu, my message would be simple. Believe you've beaten Brazil before. You can do it again. Defensively, stay compact, force Brazil wide, double team Vinicius every chance you get. Offensively, counter immediately. Don't spend too much time building attacks. Brazil's defense becomes vulnerable when their fullbacks are high. Attack those spaces. And finally, don't be afraid if Brazil dominates possession. Japan don't need the ball, they need efficiency. So, let's head on right to the match simulation. Alright, it's prediction time. Let's simulate how I think this game unfolds. First half, kickoff. Immediately, Brazil dominates possession. Exactly as expected. Japan sits deeper, very organized. Brazil moves the ball patiently. Marquinhos, Gabriel, Casemiro, Bruno, back to Marquinhos. Everything feels comfortable. But Japan aren't chasing the ball. They're waiting. Minute 12. Vinicius finally beats Doan. Drives into the box, low cross. Matheus Cunha shoots, saved by Zion Suzuki. Japan survives. Ronaldo. Minute 19. Japan wins possession. 3 passes, suddenly Ito is sprinting down to the right. Cross, Ueda gets there first, header just wide. That's Japan's warning. Brazil continues controlling possession, but Japan continues creating the clear chances. Minute 33. Paquetá loses possession. Kamada immediately plays Ito behind Brazil's defense. Ito squares the ball. Goal! Ayase Ueda finishes. Japan leads. Brazil 0, Japan 1. The stadium goes silent. Exactly the situation Brazil wanted to avoid. Before halftime, Brazil responds immediately. Vinícius becomes much more aggressive. Minute 41. Bruno Guimarães finds Vinícius. He beats one defender, cuts inside, shoots, but Suzuki saves again. Brazil finishes the first half dominating possession, but Japan still lead. Halftime, Brazil 0, Japan 1. Now for the second half, Ancelotti changes things. Brazil push both fullbacks higher. Bruno Guimarães moves further forward. The pressure increases. Japan defends deeper. Minute 58. Corner for Brazil. Paquetá delivers. Marquinhos heads it. Blocked. Chaos inside the box. Vinícius reacts first though. Then goal. Brazil equalize. 1-1. Now the match completely changes. Japan know they cannot simply defend forever. They begin attacking again. The game opens up. The final 20 minutes, this is where the intensity reaches another level. Japan continues running, pressing, working. Brazil continues attacking. Minute 76. Ito breaks away again. 1-on-1. Alisson makes a huge save. 2 minutes later, Vinícius curls one just wide. Minute 84, Brazil thinks they've scored. Offside, still 1-1. Minute 89. Minute 89, Japan almost wins it. Kamada curls the shot forward. Corner. Alisson tips it over the bar. 90 minutes are over. Brazil won, Japan won. Extra time. Now, extra time simulation. Now, this is where I think the game finally changes. Japan's system has worked almost perfectly, but maintaining that level of concentration, running, pressing, and defensive discipline is exhausting. Little by little, spaces begin appearing. Brazil notice it. Minute 96. Vinícius finally receives the ball with only one defender in front of him. Something that barely happens during normal time. He beats him. Drives into the penalty area, cuts the ball back. Matheus Cunha arrives, and then a goal. Brazil leads 2-1. Notice something important though. Brazil didn't suddenly become better. Japan simply couldn't maintain 90 minutes of perfect defending. That's how fine the margins are. Now, the final minutes. Japan throws everything forward. Their wing backs becomes wingers. Center backs move into midfield. Moriyasu has no choice. It's all or nothing. Minute 112. Free kick. Kamada delivers. Header saved again by Alisson. Minute 118. Japan launch one final attack. Cross. Cleared. Brazil counters. Vinícius nearly scores a third. The referee looks at his watch. Full time after extra time. Brazil 2, Japan 1. But what if it goes to penalties? Now let's imagine Brazil doesn't score in extra time. Who wins the shootout? Personally, this is much closer than people think. Japan have learned painful lessons from previous World Cups. Their players are mentally disciplined. They've practiced penalties extensively. Brazil obviously have excellent technical players, but they've also experienced heartbreak in penalty shootouts before. If this match reaches penalties, I honestly think it's almost a coin flip. Brazil have slightly better individual quality. Japan probably have the slightly stronger collective mentality. My prediction would be Brazil win the shootout 4-3, but I wouldn't be so shocked if Japan advanced instead. So, the final verdict. So after everything we've discussed, what do you think reaches the round? Who do you think will reach the round of 16? I think Brazil survives, not because they're a better team tactically, but because individual brilliance usually decides knockout football. Japan may actually play better football for long stretches. They may complete more passes, they may look more organized. But Brazil have players capable of producing one magical moment, and sometimes that's all you need. So my final prediction, Brazil 2, Japan 1 after extra time. Qualification probability, Brazil 65%, Japan 35%. And if Japan pulls another upset, I honestly won't call it a miracle. I'll call it the reward of having one of the best tactical systems in international football. And if Brazil doesn't score early on, that would frustrate Brazil very much and Japan would likely lead. So that's the giveaway. If you watch the game live, you'll see if the Brazil doesn't score early, they're cooked. Japan will get back because they're frustrated. That's usually what happens if you use individual brilliances over teamwork. Now, our second match might not receive as much attention as Brazil versus Japan, but don't let that fool you. This could become one of the trickiest matches for European giant. Why? Because Germany have looked impressive, but they've also shown they're far from perfect. Meanwhile, Paraguay have quietly become one of the tournament's most difficult teams to break down. If Germany underestimates them, this could become a very long night. Now, Germany entered the World Cup looking like Europeans' strongest teams. Their football is aggressive, Modern, fast, everything is built around movement. Nobody stands still. Musiala moves. Wirtz drift inside. Sane attacks behind the defense. Kimmich constantly changes the angle of the attack. Germany wants chaos, controlled chaos. They press high actually, win the ball, attack immediately. If everything works, they overwhelm opponents. Now the expected lineup: goalkeeper we have Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Defense we have Joshua Kimmich, Antonio Rodiger, Jonathan Tah, Maximilian Mittelstadt. In their midfield we have Pascal Gob, Alexander Pavlovic, and their attack we have Jamal Musiala, Florian Wirtz, Leroy Sane, Denis Undav. Denis. I'm so sorry, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. And Germany's biggest strength, their movement. Watch Musiala and Wirtz. Sometimes Musiala becomes a striker, then Wirtz drops into midfield. 5 seconds later, they switch again. The vendors hate playing against players who never stay in one position. Germany also press relentlessly. Lose the ball, 5 players immediately hunt you down. If they recover possession near the penalty area, you are already in trouble. That's basically it. But here's the problem. Many fans only remember Germany's victories, but there's one match everyone should pay attention to. Germany lost 2-1 to Ecuador. Some people dismissed it. They've already qualified, they rotate. Okay, that's fair. But the match still exposed weaknesses. Whenever Germany lose the ball high up the field, Ecuador attacks the space behind them. Germany's defensive line looks incredibly vulnerable. Their midfield couldn't recover quickly enough, and they struggled defending fast transitions. That isn't something you can simply ignore. If Ecuador could hurt Germany like that, Paraguay will definitely try the same thing. But that would be a very small chance. Why? Because when Ecuador played that, their team, they like pressing the midfield, and Germany, they couldn't recover fast. But Paraguay, they're more like a defensive low block team. They like to play behind, they like to make build-ups rather than immediate presses. Now, Paraguay are the complete opposite of Germany. They don't care about possession. They don't care if they only touch the ball 35% of the time. They want discipline, physicality, patience. Every player knows their role. Defend first, attack later. They almost invited opponents forward. Why? Because the more players Germany commit, the more space Paraguay have to counter. Now, the expected lineup. We have goalkeeper Gaetito Fernandez. In the defense, Juan Tacheres, Gustavo Gomez, Omar Alderete, Junior Alonso. In their midfield, we have Andres Cubas, Diego Gomez. And their attack, we got Miguel Almiron, Julio Enciso, Ramon Sosa, Gabriel Afalos. Now, Paraguay's strength is physical defending, strong aerially, excellent organization, dangers from set pieces, but the players Germany must fear the most are Miguel Almiron, Julio Enciso. Every counterattack begins with one of them. Enciso is fearless. He'll drive directly at defenders. Almiron stretches the field with his pace. Germany cannot allow those two space. Now, how can Germany win? Score first. Simple. If Germany scores early, Paraguay must open up. The movement Paraguay leaves their defensive shape. Germany becomes far more dangerous. Now, how can Paraguay win though? Make Germany frustrated, slow the game, win fouls, attack from corners, force Germany into mistakes. This isn't a match Paraguay expect to dominate, it's a match they expect to survive. Basically, they're the underdog. So, let's head on right to the match simulation. Now, Germany begins aggressively, exactly as expected. Possession, high pressing. Paraguay defend with 10 players behind the ball. Minute 14. Musiala dribbles through midfield, finds Wirtz, shoots it, saved. Germany continues attacking though. Minute 29, corner. Rodiger hits just over, but Paraguay remains calm. Minute 38, Germany loses possession and Gito immediately releases Almiron. Cross, Alfalos finishes. Goal. Against the run of play, Germany 0, Paraguay 1. And this is if Germany failed to score early on. Now, second half, Germany responds immediately. More possession, higher tempo. Minute 56, Musiala beats two defenders. Finds Sane, low cross. Undaf scores, 1-on-1. Now Germany smells blood. Minute 72, Paraguay Paraguay almost scores again from a corner. Ter Stegen saves brilliantly. Minute 83, Germany finally finds space. Musiala dribbles, slides the ball towards, and we have another goal. Germany leads 2-1. Germany survives. And this is if the match is tight. Now for extra time though, if Paraguay equalized late, I think extra time actually favors Germany. Why? Bench depth. Germany can bring on fresh attacking players. Paraguay don't have the same quality available. By the 100th minute, Germany tactical superiority begins showing. Penalties. Germany have historically been one of football's strongest penalty teams. Paraguay are mentally tough, but I'd still favor Germany. Germany wins the shootout 4-2. So my final prediction, Germany 2, Paraguay 1. Qualification chances, Germany 65%, Paraguay 35%. Now, let's head on right to the next match. Now, this is the last match of the day. This is my favorite match of the day actually. Not because it's probably the hardest game to predict. Honestly, I think this is almost 50-50. The Netherlands, the Dutch love controlling matches. Everything starts with Frankie de Jong. He's the heartbeat, the metronome, the player who decides when to speed up and when to slow the game down. The Netherlands don't rush attacks. They move the ball patiently, waiting for gaps. Then suddenly, Frimpong, Gakpo, or Xavi Simons attacks. I'm sorry, kind of losing on the voice here a little bit. But you can expect the lineup to be Van Bergen, Dumfries, Van Dijk, Ake, Madsen, Frankie de Jong, Regingers, Xavi Simons, Frimpong, Gakpo, Brobbey, and their biggest strength is control. Very few teams dominates possession better. They rarely panic. Everything feels calm, organized, patient. Their biggest weaknesses, breaking down disciplined defenses. And we've already seen that in this tournament against Japan. The Netherlands struggled, Japan refused to open space, stay compact, counter quickly, and the Dutch couldn't fully control those dangerous transitions. That's important because their next opponent plays in a very similar way. Morocco. Now for Morocco, people still underestimate Morocco. I don't. We've already seen what they're capable of on the big stage. Compact, physically strong, mentally fearless. Every player works. Nobody walks. Nobody switches off. Now the expected lineup now might come from it might be Bono, Hakimi, Agueret, Chadiriat, Masraoui, Amrabat, Ounahi, Brahim Diaz, Saibari, and Nesri. I think I'm pronouncing those wrong. I'm sorry, but you get the point. They're in the description down below if you're confused on who I'm saying. Now, Morocco's biggest strength, defensive organization. If you only watch highlights, you'll think Morocco defends deep. But watch carefully. Their distances between players are excellent. When Hakimi attacks, someone immediately covers. When Amrabat presses, another midfield protects their defense. just like Japan. Everyone understood the system. Now, here's why I think this match could become fascinating. The Netherlands already struggled against Japan. Japan defended as one unit, pressed intelligently, counterattack quickly. Morocco do many of those things, but they're even stronger physically. They're better in the air and they're more dangerous from set pieces. If Japan frustrates the Dutch, Morocco could absolutely do that as well, but I don't think it would become very systematic as Japan. It might come close. Now, the key battle, Frankie de Jong versus Sofyan Amrabat. This battle decides everything. If Frankie controls possession, the Netherlands probably win. If Amrabat limits his influence, Morocco becomes incredibly dangerous. So let's head on right to the match simulation. First, we got the kickoff, obviously. Exactly as expected. The Netherlands dominate possession. Morocco defends. Minute 22, Gakpo scores. 1-0 Netherlands win. Most people think it's over. It isn't. Morocco stays calm. Minute 41, Hakimi wins the ball. Quick counter, cross, and Nessie goal. 1-1. Now for the second half, the Netherlands attack. Morocco defends. Neither team wants to make their first mistake. Minute 81. Bono makes an unbelievable save from Xavi Simons. 90 minutes, 1-1. Extra time. This is where I think the momentum changes. The Dutch have spent almost the entire game attacking. Morocco has spent almost their entire game defending. But Morocco only needs one chance. Minute 103, Hakimi wins possession, drives 40 meters, finds Brahim, cross, and Nessir heads home. 2-1 Morocco. The Netherlands throw everyone forward. Van Dijk nearly scores from a corner. Bono saves again. Final whistle, Morocco eliminates the Netherlands. Now, if Morocco don't score the extra time, I actually favor them in penalties too. Why? Bono. He's proven over multiple major tournaments that he can make decisive saves in high pressure moments. That doesn't guarantee Morocco would win in a shootout, but it makes them a very dangerous opponent if the match reaches penalties. Now, for the final predictions, this one is actually quite complicated than rather the group stage as last time. But let's just head right on it. Brazil versus Japan. After extra time, Brazil may win 2-1 against Japan. But if they don't, they don't score early on, Japan would likely win. But I think the higher chance would still go to Brazil on this one to win tightly, very slim. And for Germany versus Paraguay, I feel that I'll definitely go for Germany. Paraguay may have the fighting chance to put up a fight at least, but they're not. Their counter, like Ecuador, they don't press their midfield as much as Ecuador do, so I don't think they would have a lot of chances. So I'd say Germany wins 2-1 against Paraguay. Now, Morocco versus the Netherlands. For extra time, if the Netherlands don't press early on, very much, they don't have a defensive block that strong, Morocco may win after extra time 2-1 against the Netherlands. But if the Netherlands really did put up their defensive line after they scored early on, the Netherlands have a higher chance of winning than Morocco, because Morocco, their only scorer I see that literally highlights every single game is Hakimi. If they manage to lock down Hakimi, it might be a different story for Morocco. Now, players of the match, I'd say Brazil versus Japan, it gotta be Vinícius Júnior. Germany versus Paraguay, it gotta be Jamal Musiala. And Morocco versus the Netherlands, I'd say it's Achraf Hakimi. Now, so those are my predictions for today's round of 32. Brazil survives one of the toughest tests they'll face in this tournament. Germany avoid what could have become a major upset, and Morocco continues their incredible World Cup story by knocking out the Netherlands. But remember, this is the World Cup. Favorites lose, underdogs become heroes. That's what makes this tournament so special. But it's not always guaranteed though. Alright, I'm just saying that. It's not always guaranteed. Now, I want to hear from you though. Do you think Japan can shock Brazil again? Can Paraguay punish Germany's defensive weakness, and will Morocco continue another historic run? Well, that's basically it for today's matchup. I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions and the simulations that I did. And I'm going to do another one, of course, for tomorrow. This one is actually quite long because it's actually quite interesting. I'm enhancing my analysis on these games since it's not the group knockout stage anymore. We're getting to round of eliminations, and it is really quite interesting, honestly. Well, if you enjoyed this video today, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so every time I upload, you guys can see about the predictions and simulation and get a picture on how the match would go. Alright then, I'll see you on the very next video.